Anxiety is down the line a little way with the progression of things. The first thing that happens in the line of events is your belief systems. And some of them may be faulty. We'll talk about that in depth here in just a minute. And then the belief systems that you have will then influence your thinking, and sometimes it will manifest in thinking errors. I'm talking if you truly have ASD and you truly have mind blindness and executive function deficits. So that's the second thing. First, belief systems. Second, and sometimes faulty belief systems. Second, how you think, and sometimes thinking errors. Those two things have to happen first before the anxiety happens. Anxiety won't pop up by itself. The precursor is always a thought based on a belief system. So if you want to reduce your anxiety, which who the hell wouldn't, we have to look at, we'll just do that now. We have to look at what were some of the cognitive distortions, we'll call it, that precipitated, in this case, fearfulness and anxiety. So if we can learn to correctly identify distorted thoughts, then we can respond to the distorted thoughts by balancing them with thoughts that are more in alignment with logic and fact and reality. So let's talk about refuting negative thoughts repeatedly, over and over and over again, which will slowly diminish what has been running on autopilot, which is a cognitive distortion, and then the subsequent negative emotion. In this case, it's anxiety. So one thing, and I'm just going to talk about the ones that I see prominently in the ASD community, would be filtering. So with filtering, and all of these cognitive distortions that I'm talking about will result in anxiety. So you have to look at the cognitive distortions before you can eliminate the anxiety. With filtering, we will take the negative details and we will magnify them, while at the same time filtering out the positive aspects of a situation. For example, it's possible that you may have picked out a single unpleasant detail and really ruminated about it. And even though the situation on a scale of 1 to 10 was a level, as far as being problematic, was a level 2, but the more you focus on that, while at the same time ignoring the positive thing about that, it kind of turns into a level 8 or 9. Another one that comes up a lot with people on the autism spectrum is polarized thinking. You've heard of this before, it's black and white thinking. So here, we have to be perfect or we're a failure. There's no middle ground. And you may place people or situations in either or categories. No shades of gray. If your performance falls short of being perfect, then you see yourself as a total failure. Or if I can't get all the aspects of this decision that I'm trying to make, this new big change coming up, if I can't get everything ironed out and perfectly lined up, I'm not going to do it. The only problem with that is you'll never get to the point where all your ducks are lined up in a row. That'll never happen. You kind of have to take a leap of faith at some point, and then the rest of the information you need will show up later. Another cognitive distortion piece that will result in anxiety would be overgeneralizing. This is where we come to a general conclusion based on one little single incident or piece of evidence. So if we might think, if something bad happened once, we kind of expect it to happen over and over again. So you may see a single unpleasant event as a never-ending pattern of defeat. So we call that overgeneralizing. Another one that I see quite often with people on the autism spectrum is jumping to conclusions. You've done that with her many times, and she's done it with you too. She has her own cognitive distortions, just in case you were wondering. With jumping to conclusions, we think we know in our mind, we know that we know what the other person's motivation is. We know why they are saying a particular thing. We know why they are doing a particular thing. We really don't know, but we think that we know. And so it's like if I jump to conclusions, we'll use NT wife as an example. She says something or does something, and I will immediately assume, well, that was meant to punish me without further investigation. So with jumping to conclusions, we don't investigate. We just run with our first thought of why this might be happening. Catastrophizing, another big one. So here, and some of these overlap too, by the way. With catastrophizing, we kind of expect disaster to strike no matter what. Another term used with catastrophizing would be magnifying or minimizing. We hear about a particular problem, or we're facing a new change or whatever, and we go, what if tragedy strikes? If I do that, then this might happen. But if I don't do that, then this might happen. So a lot of if then. If this happens, then this is going to happen. And we are expecting the worst. Personalization, another big thinking error that will result in anxiety. This is thinking that everything people do or say is some kind of reaction to you. How many times have you done that with her? Where she has said something or done something that was totally neutral, and you took it as a personal insult. And she might have even said, wasn't even referring to you. I'm not upset with you. I'm upset with something that happened at work or whatever. So she says or does something, or maybe she doesn't say or do something that you were expecting, and you jump to the thought, oh, I guess I'm in trouble again. Or what did I do now? Or why are you looking at me that way? What we're talking about here is you had certain belief systems that caused you to have these cognitive distortions. I'm going to make up an example so you'll understand. I'm going to go back to the first one, filtering, where you filter out the positive and focus on the negative. What was the belief system that may have triggered that cognitive distortion? Because the belief system comes first, then the cognitive distortion, then the anxiety. One example might be you found that it was very difficult to please people. You might have been always on the receiving end of disapproval. And at the same time, you may not have gotten much positive feedback for the stuff that you're doing well. And so you kind of learned, and here's your belief system perhaps, and you're just running with some examples. It doesn't matter what I say or do, I'm always on the receiving end of disapproval. And I don't get any acknowledgement or praise. She doesn't appreciate the good things that I do. So that would be the belief system that would lead to the cognitive distortion of filtering, that would lead to the negative emotion of anxiety.